Greetings all, and welcome to the 25th episode of the V.T.P, or the Veteran Trainer's Perspective. Today, we're going to be taking a look back at the videos this channel has already made and provide some updated information on Pokemon families that have already been reported on. Specifically, we're going to be updating them with information that's been made available through Pokémon Legends Arceus, so buckle up as we get right to them.
Starting off, we have Hussein Growlithe, who share the same basic body form as Cantonian Growlithe, but are noted for having a deeper, darker red-orange coat of fur on their bodies, with black striped marks along their back and legs, and much brighter white fur on their body compared to the beige fur of their Cantonian counterpart. In addition, the white fur on their body is much thicker, with the tail looking like a cloud, and their heads being mostly encased in this white fur, covering their eyes almost entirely, with a thick three-rolled plume of fur hanging down from the front of their neck over their chest, and they additionally have a small horn on the top of their head. Growlithe in the Hisui region are notably different from their Cantonian counterparts because of the igneous rock material that covers a large portion of their body, namely hidden inside the thick, fluffy fur that covers much of their face and upper chest. This armor is believed to have been developed as a consequence of these creatures developing within volcanic terrain, and thus serves as both a potent heat shield and as a way of helping to keep them insulated from the extreme cold of the Hisui region's bitter winters. While they can still be just as playful as their Cantonian counterparts, these creatures are never seen alone, always traveling in pairs as they hunt and patrol their territory on a constant basis. Moreover, though they can make themselves into decent fighters, the delicate horn on their heads is rarely ever used for serious combat unless absolutely necessary, as it can easily break and can take a long time to grow back. As a result of living apart from humans for a long period of time, it also takes longer for these variants to bond with humans, but they nonetheless can prove to be just as loyal as any other Growlithe, and thus can make for great partners of those with the patience needed for these canines to warm up to them, figuratively and literally. As far as their combat potential goes, these beasts operate very similarly to Cantonian Growlithe, but are notably different in that they are fire-rock types, possess slightly decreased base special attack and speed stats, and slightly increased base HP and attack stats, and have natural access to the rock slide attack.
From here, we can take a look at this variant's evolution, Hissuian Arcanine.
Much as with their pre-evolved form, these creatures share a very similar body form with Cantonian Arcanine, but feature the same deep red-orange color on their body fur as seen in Hissuian Growlithe. In addition, their white fur has darkened to a black, sooty gray color and has grown in size across their frame, forming a thick plume of multi-pronged wing-like flanges of hair around their neck and a full face covering outside of their gray eyes, further possessing a trio of horns on their head, the center horn being larger and longer than the smaller two to its sides. Hissuian Arcanine are said to have been one of only a select group of Pokemon that were blessed with cosmic power by Arceus in the times of the Hisui region, the precursor to the modern Sinnoh region, and served as the noble Pokemon of the Cobalt Coastlands in the time of the Hisui region. Much as with their pre-evolved form, these creatures are different from normal Arcanine in that their front is covered in a thick layer of igneous rock and fur that is used as both a heat shield and as a way of insulating them against the harsh winters of the Hisui region. But it also doubles as a powerful set of armor that allows them to attack recklessly in battle to give them an edge in close quarters fights. The armor might look bulky, but in truth it does little to slow these creatures down, allowing them to move with almost the same degree of agility and grace as Cantonian Arcanine, and in turn enabling them to lead foes around on a merry chase while avoiding their attacks at the same time. When they must attack, they tend to strike with their powerful flames as the teeth and mouth are ablaze and coated in flames, delivering powerful blows like their potent Raging Fury attack to great effect. These beasts are incredibly hard to tame on their own and are thus worth fearing, but the loyalty still shines forth towards those that take care of them, making them valuable partners to rely on in a pinch. Lastly, in terms of combat attributes, like their pre-evolved form, these beasts are fire rock types in nature, possess slightly decreased base special attack and speed stats, and slightly increased base HP and attack stats, and have natural access to the rock slide and Raging Fury attacks, the lattermost being quite rare to see and a perfect illustration of the raw power and fury they can demonstrate when needed. Next, we have Hisuian Quillfish, who look almost identical to their Johtonian counterparts, differing at the parts of their body that are normally blue are now a purplish-black color with purple-tipped spines, while their greenish-beige undersides have turned a more pale white color. In addition, their tails now have a lowercase Q-shaped symbol on the side. In the ancient times of the Hisui region, Quillfish were actually even more dangerous than they are in modern times, as there were natural pollutants in the waters of the Hisui region that, while harmless on their own to humans, possess unique chemical arrangements that allow them to be digested by Pokemon like Quillfish and then broken down for energy. This not only made these creatures far more dangerous than their modern relatives, but also made them masters at using anti-positive energy as a powerful weapon, hence them being classified as partial dark types over being water types. Consuming these raw poisons made these beasts a terror for fishermen of their time to have to face, as the slightest prick from the bodies is enough to induce severe reactions, sepsis, and even shock, making them a dire threat to go near. The fact that they tend to flock in groups in the wild in those times only made them that much more of a threat, and while it might be for the best that such a variety is now only accessible through time travel, as is their capacity to evolve, the toxic powers nonetheless make them something worth relying on if one wishes to hassle an opponent with nasty status conditions without fearing electricity all that much in a fight. As such, it is no surprise that these beasts, as mentioned already, are dark poison types, but are otherwise mostly the same as their Johtonian counterparts, though they do have access to the Bar Barrage and Dark Pulse attacks, the former of the two being essential to evolution for them. Unlike modern Quillfish, Hissuian Quillfish are uniquely gifted in that they actually have the capacity to evolve, and this evolution over Quill looks quite similar to them, but is noted for the large uppercase Q-shaped symbol on their tail, as well as a series of massive spines that are almost constantly at full mast, covering their body and even their face while being tipped with a potent poison. As a consequence of their diet, Hissuian Quillfish have much stronger toxins in their bodies than their modern counterparts, and the signature Bar Barrage attack is a dire threat to many for its capacity to make life hell for those already crippled with a status effect. But it seems that there is also a psychological nature attached to this attack that influences the way they grow and develop. The move itself is normally only moderately powerful, and thus not a huge problem on its own, but the use of it seems to trigger these fish into entering a far more aggressive state than they normally show. This especially comes out of them when they execute the attack in a strong style fashion, as was prevalent in the times of the Hisui region, and over time, this will cause their brains to slowly change to make them increasingly aggressive by default. If this move is executed in that style a grand total of at least 20 times, it will activate dormant parts of their brain that can then facilitate their evolution into Overquill. This reaction is still being hotly studied by researchers for its overall implications, but as a whole, it can render these otherwise annoying fish into serious forces to contend with in any fight.
As one might expect given the manner in which they actually evolve, Overquill are extremely aggressive and will gladly go after just about anyone that gets within a few meters of their form, no matter who they may be. And that is a major problem since evolution causes the spines in their body to grow to an immense and almost ludicrous length.
While these barbs are indeed filled with poison, and continue to grow so much so as these beasts regularly die in a marine life that has poison of its own, nourishing themselves on the toxins while also integrating them into their bodies in order to make their own poison stronger, their sheer length and size also makes them perfect for spears, slamming into and piercing through targets to impale them and make for an easy meal. However, it is noted that this does not always work out well for Overquill, as the awkward forms make it difficult for them to swim properly, plus they need to rely on others of their kind or their environment to remove speared prey to consume them, but this does little to deter them from making life horrifying for those that try to get near them. Not surprisingly then, the savage temperament of these beasts has earned them the nickname of the Sea Fiend, and renders them beasts to be concerned about, especially given that their type assignment severely limits their weaknesses and makes them almost impossible to take down easily when in the water, where they thrive the best.
From there, we move on to the Hisuian Sneasel family next.
Hissuian Sneasel have an identical body form to their Johtonian counterparts, the only differences being in their fur color, as they're mostly covered in light lavender fur with splotches of darker purple fur on their two-fingered hands, chest, face, and enlarged left ear, as well as the eyes being a deep red color with yellow oval-shaped organic gems on their forehead and chest. Sneasel in the Hisui region are notably different from their Johtonian counterparts as a consequence of living in harsh mountainous terrain that emphasizes a need for them to be able to scale sheer cliffs in order to get to the food resources they need to survive, as well as a focus on an independent lifestyle that contradicts the pack mentality of their Johtonian variant, and in turn a necessity for them to be able to handle armored opponents that would otherwise be difficult for modern Johtonian Sneasel to handle on their own. As a result, they have become fighting poison types with access to Poison Touch as a hidden ability, as well as the Rock Smash, Poison Jab, and Close Combat attacks naturally. Their curved claws are specially designed to be able to chip away and smash into rock to allow them to climb rock walls with ease, which has been adapted by them into said Rock Smash attack, and in turn works to grant them the properties of the fighting type, while at the same time granting them the capacity to use poison to slowly whittle the health down of any powerful prey item they may come across. The poison that leaks from the tips of their claws is incredibly potent and is useful for forcing down otherwise monstrous creatures that would be resistant to the effects of toxins. Using their rock smash and close combat attacks, they can break away the armor of opponents before using their claws to inflict nasty wounds and infuse them with poison, and from there, it's only a matter of time before the toxins reach and paralyze their nervous system, allowing Hisuian Sneezel to then feed on their prey in peace while they are still alive. This ruthless method of dispatching prey more than makes them a terrible threat to deal with, and while the icy Gelatonian variants have become the sole type of Sneasel these days as a result of increasingly harsh winters in the Sinnoh region, they are nonetheless noted for their power and unique evolutionary capabilities.
Now, normally, Sneasel are unable to evolve and remain much as they are from the moment they are born. Under certain circumstances, however, these creatures can and will evolve, primarily when they gain an experience level of some sort while holding a Razor Claw, as noted in my initial report on the family.
Instead of evolving at night though, Hissuian Sneasel undergo this evolutionary change in the daytime, and in doing so, they manage to evolve into an entirely new species altogether, known as Sneezeler. Sneezeler themselves have the same general body form as their pre-evolved form, but are noted for having bluish-gray fur along most of their frames, with purple fur at the base of their feet, which have 3 white claws each, as well as large splotches of it on their face. In addition, their limbs become longer and lankier. Their longer ear grows quite a bit in size to become a purple and pink-tipped tassel of sorts in form, matching the color pattern of their short tail. They possess yellow diamond-shaped crystals on their chest and forehead, and they now sport 3 massive dark purple claws on each hand, with pink edges on the top where poison is held, and a small purple circular marking right above their upper digits. Retaining the unique type assignment possessed by the pre-evolved form, Sneezeler are different from Weavile in that they have slightly weaker base defense, special attack, special defense, and speed stats, but make up for this with slightly increased base HP and attack stats, and they additionally have a tremendous reputation in the lore of Hisui, as they are said to have been one of only a select group of Pokemon that were blessed with cosmic power by Arceus in the times of the Hisui region, and served as a guardian of the Coronet Highlands they once called home. While remaining as independent hunters, it is important to note that Sneezeler are much better adapted to the habitats of the home region and have evolved a special type of poison in their bodies that is useful not only for taking out larger opponents, but even their own kind. Their signature Dire Claw attack, inflicting multiple potential status conditions in order to cripple the power of any creature they might be forced into battle against. This potent poison, combined with their daunting physical strength, makes any confrontation with these creatures a terrible fate for many, and no other creature is equipped to beat them readily on their mountainous home turf, which they can traverse easily by climbing up sheer rock walls with their powerful claws. With that said, like their pre-evolved form, these creatures prefer a solitary life both in and out of hunting, and rarely ever meet up with their own kind, oftentimes even competing with one another for food resources. This can make it a bit difficult for them to be raised as a team player in a lot of cases, but it also nonetheless renders them difficult forces to have to contend with unless the type combination can be taken advantage of, as they are noted for their exceptional weakness to psychic type assaults, though their incredible agility can also still make them a hard target to hit precisely.
Next in line, we've got Hisuian Lilligant, who differ noticeably from the Unnovan variety in appearance and overall power.
Instead of having a somewhat stocky form, these creatures are noted for their long limbs, their arms consisting of a single long green leaf each, while the legs are pink and sturdy, with 2 yellow feet-like structures at the end with a curved form that makes them resemble shoes. They have a green leafy torso and yellow collared petals around their neck, while their head is a white face with pink eyes and a small crown of leaves and brilliant pink flower on top, making them look as if they have an actual head of hair. Hisuian Lilligant are said to have been one of only a select group of Pokemon that were blessed with cosmic power by Arceus in the times of the Hisui region, and served as the noble Pokemon of the Crimson Marlands in the time of that region. While they still maintain the visual grace of the Unnovan variant, this type of Lilligant is believed to have developed in response to the harsh winters that are known to have plagued the Hisui region, with their limbs, legs especially, elongating in order to keep their flower and main body high above snow and therefore safe from the effects of frost and freezing in general. As a consequence of their elongated legs, These plants are able to move and attack with greater ease compared to their normal Unovan brethren, and are able to leap great heights and move with such grace that they can become entrancing to all that gaze upon them. It is even said that the scent released from their flower has the power to embolden and hearten those that inhale it, making for quite the lively audience to perform in front of. However, this is only what lay on the surface, as these creatures have further traded much of their special attributes for the power of physical offense, gaining access to a number of potent fighting type attacks in the process and being enough of an expert at using them to be considered partial fighting types themselves. This notable power not only gives these creatures an edge over plants that are otherwise defenseless against extreme cold, but it manifests itself uniquely in them through their victory dance technique, which not only increases their offensive and defensive attributes when performed, but also gives them a 50% power boost in the damage they do for a short period of time on top of that, helping to in turn elevate these elegant creatures to a tier where even those with effective attacks might not last long against the punishing physical assaults they can deliver. From here, as far as their combat attributes are concerned, as noted, these creatures are grass fighting types, possess a cataclysmically decreased base special attack stat, but also a moderately increased base speed stat and a critically increased base attack stat, have the Hustle ability as a base ability in place of Own Tempo, and have access to the Rock Smash, Drain Punch, Victory Dance, and Close Combat moves, the first of which they acquire immediately after evolving, and in turn are more than capable of making a name for themselves and have allowed to put their agility and strength to the best use.
Up next is Basculin, specifically the white-striped variety once known to have lived within the waters of the Hisui region.
This variety resembles a bit of a fusion between the physical features of red and blue striped Basculin, as they have the same eye shape as red striped Basculin, but also have the pectoral fin shape of blue striped Basculin, while the dorsal fin on their frame is larger than either of the two types, and the eyes and the stripes on their body are white in color, hence their name. It is believed that the original variant that red and blue striped Basculin descended from may be found in the form of white striped Basculin, which is exclusively found within the ancient waters of the Hisui region. Because this variation has physical characteristics that seem to take from both the forms of red and blue striped Basculin, and because they otherwise have access to a similar set of moves and powers, it seems more than likely that they are indeed the original form of these two kinds, and have only managed to stay in their current state because of the more isolated waterways beneath and around the various plots of fresh and salt water found in the Hisui region. What makes these variants especially interesting, however, is that they are actually incredibly gentle in stark contrast to the other variants, and are actually so shy that they rarely ever show themselves for more than a few seconds in the water before bolting from sight if they detect an approaching life form that they feel threatened by, which might explain their exclusive access to Rattled as a base ability. In the Hisui region, these creatures will often travel upstream to higher elevations to breed and lay their eggs in peace before passing away, but the journey is often incredibly harsh for them, and most of their kind do not make the journey fully, oftentimes dying in the process trying to navigate the craggy, rocky pathways used to get to said elevations. Even so, they still possess the same general power as Basculin, and thus can be annoying beasts to fight against, especially if they can make good use of their wave crash attack to blitz through potential predators with notable power.
While red and blue striped Basculin that exist today seemingly have lost the capacity to evolve in any way as a result of a change in the overall demeanor and behavior, in ancient times, the white striped variant could actually use its greater sense of emotional and spiritual depth to make itself into a much greater force to contend with, in turn evolving into Basculegion.
These massive creatures have a body form the same color as Basculin, but with a longer body, larger fins, and a strange energetic aura and markings that cover their face and their tail as they move, complete with small protrusions on their eyebrows, as well as the bottom of their face in the case of males, giving them an elder-like appearance. Moreover, the color of these features on their body and around their odd crooked mouth is notably different depending on their gender, with the markings and aura being red in color in the case of males and white in the case of females. Though it is hard to explain why currently, it seems that the mellow behavior of white-striped Basculin allows them to more readily take in the experience of making a journey upstream at an emotional level, remembering as they fight that many countless fellow Basculin have died in the process of trying to reach the high ground to breed at. In extremely rare cases, this can then cause them to absorb the souls that fill the waters of the region in turn, and once they manage to reach the high ground they seek and mate to produce offspring, if they have absorbed or otherwise been possessed by the right number of souls, they can then ascend to a higher plane of spiritual existence and evolve into Basculegion. This process has proved to be incredibly difficult to replicate under the same sorts of conditions, but it has also been observed that the same process can be replicated in a more physical form, namely in regards to receiving recoil damage from certain attacks. Psychologically, these fish take in every point of damage they do to themselves in executing moves like Double Edge and Wave Crash, and use them as a representative of fellow Basculin that have passed away. As such, once they have accumulated a total of 294 points of damage over time, not counting anything that would actually cause them to faint, they can undergo the same evolutionary process, making the task of actually evolving them easier than nature might otherwise trigger in the wild. While Basculegion are normally known to be quiet and docile towards most others, they can still show perhaps where the hostile nature of red and blue striped Basculin evolved from, for if they are perturbed sufficiently, they will turn incredibly vicious and will actively attack with the power of the numerous souls that lay inside of them. Moreover, these souls are said to still be able to think and act on their own, driving Basculegion to act even if they otherwise would not, thus making their existence a bit disjointed and difficult for them to always control.
Despite this, these creatures have a tremendous reputation, as they are said to have been one of only a select group of Pokemon that were blessed with cosmic power by Arceus in the times of the Hisui region, and served as a guardian of the Cobalt coastlands they once called home.
Aside from this, these creatures are noteworthy in not just the moves they can learn naturally that are otherwise inaccessible to their pre-evolved form, namely the Hex and Shadow Ball attacks, but also the overall appearance, as already mentioned, and their base stats, which are known to differ wildly depending on what their gender may be. On the one hand, while both suffer a moderate drop in their base speed stat upon evolving and become water ghost types, male Basculegion follow the attributes of their pre-evolved form most directly, as they feature a moderately increased base attack stat and are noted for the brilliant red markings on their bodies. Female Basculegion, on the other hand, have white patterns on their frame and are noted for having a moderately increased base special attack stat, in turn allowing females to make the most of the new ghost-type powers that have been bestowed upon them naturally, and thus better represent the countless spirits comprising them.
From here, let's go to Hisuian Braviary, who also have a notable unique variant within the Hisui region.
These birds share the same general body form as Unovan Braviary, but are distinct for their muted color palette, as the main bodies are covered in dark gray feathers, with the tops of their wings, head, and tail, as well as the stripe around the posterior, being comprised of snow-white feathers. In addition, they have a crest on their forehead made of wispy blue and purple psychic energy, with a distinct eye-shaped blue crest pattern contained within, giving them a rather bold appearance from their head alone. Like Basculegion, these creatures are said to have been one of only a select group of Pokemon that were blessed with cosmic power by Arceus in the times of the Hisui region, and served as a guardian of the Alabaster Icelands they once called home. In stark contrast to their Unovan counterparts, these birds rely not on brute strength but mental energy as a weapon of choice, making them partial and primary psychic types, and they are able to make good use of this power both in and outside of battle. Choosing a solitary lifestyle over traveling in flocks, these creatures travel to the Hisui region in colder seasons and are able to use their psychic powers to aid them well in hunting anywhere, as they can sound out a blood-curdling battle cry to signal they are on the hunt, while using the psychic powers to let out eerie screeches capable of generating shockwaves strong enough to stun living prey in bodies of water before they float to the surface. From there, they can then easily grasp and catch the meals before ripping them apart with their sharp talons and devouring them then and there. Hisuian Braviary can further use their powers to heighten their sixth sense and enter a trance to increase the power of their physical combat attributes. While this might not do them a lot of good, given that they specialize far more in special power than physical, with their signature Esper Wing attack at their disposal, as well as to boost their agility and hopefully score critical hits more easily, it can still be said that these majestic birds are more than capable of being severe threats in any battle, even if they might still be offensively outclassed by many other Psychic-type Pokemon. As far as their combat attributes go, as already noted, these beasts are Psychic Flying types, have slightly decreased base defense and special defense stats, a moderately decreased base speed stat, and a critically decreased base attack stat compared to the Unovan variant, but also a slightly increased base HP stat and a monstrously increased base special attack stat, and have access to the Quick Attack, Aerial Ace, Twister, Esper Wing, Roost, Double Edge, and Hurricane attacks.
Hisuian Sliggoo and their evolution Hisuian Goodra are the next two for us to take a look at.
Hissuian Sliggoo are almost completely identical to the Colossian variant, the only major difference outside of the droopy eyes being that they possess and live within a large steel-gray shell made of calciferous material and iron, making it a powerful and sturdy structure. This massive shell is a part of their natural form, formed as a consequence of their slime reacting with the iron-rich waters of the Hisui region. These creatures will often use their shell as a form of defense against attack, pulling their entire bodies into it for defense and to avoid bad weather, leaving only their head, neck, and arms outside of it on a regular basis. The spiral shell not only does its job very well in keeping them safe, but it also grants them access to the variation of their signature shelter technique, which only they and the rest of their family have access to, and as a whole, proves to be quite useful as a defensive measure. It can even allow them to make a quick getaway, for if they need to get away from a potential predator, they can fully submerge themselves in their shell, tilt it on its side from a flat position on the ground or floating on the water, and simply roll away from danger. However, it is also noted that this has all altered the brain chemistry of these creatures and rendered them melancholic on a near constant basis, which can make them a bit difficult to deal with if they're not provided excessive love to make them feel more comfortable about regularly coming out of their shell. In looking at their combat attributes, it can be further seen that these creatures are Steel Dragon types, possess a slightly decreased base HP stat, a moderately decreased base speed stat, and a considerably increased base defense stat, have the Overcoat ability as a base ability in place of Hydration, and have access to the Iron Head attack. Their evolution, Hisuian Gudra, follow a similar trend in that the most prominent physical difference present compared to their Colossian counterparts is the massive shell that is attached to their tail, though it is also noted that their horns are longer and thinner in this state and their eyes tend to droop on a constant basis, making them look rather sad or depressed. As with Hisuian Sliggoo, these creatures will often use the shell as a form of defense against attack, pulling their entire bodies into it for defense and to avoid bad weather, but otherwise wear it as an accessory on their back and tail. The spiral shell does its job very well in keeping them safe with and without their signature shelter technique, and as a whole, proves to be quite useful as a defensive measure, but it does cause some slight deformation in their forms elsewhere, namely in their eyes and horns. The grey, metal-rich slime that drips from their bodies has some slight corrosive properties to it, making them a bit harder to get near, and this is a problem as they are extremely clingy towards those that care for them. These massive beasts hate it when others leave their company and are left alone, and have been known to go on riotous rampages if they are left alone by someone for even a short length of time, making them much harder to handle and control and thus a bigger issue to deal with than Colossian Gudra could ever be. As far as combat abilities go, the differences brought up with their pre-evolved form remain, namely that they are Steel Dragon types, possess a slightly decreased base HP stat, a moderately decreased base speed stat, and a considerably increased base defense stat, have the Overcoat ability as a base ability in place of Hydration, have access to the Iron Head attack, and furthermore, possess the highest base special defense stat out of all Steel-type Pokemon, tied with Probopass and Registeel, as well as the highest base stat total out of all non-legendary Steel-type Pokemon, tied with Metagross.
Next up, we've got the smaller, but more brutish regional variant known as Hasuyan Avalog.
While they are smaller in size compared to the normal Colossian variant, Hasuyan Avalog are otherwise mostly the same in appearance, save for the massive ice wedge that is attached to the front of their head, as well as the fact that their entire lower bodies are made of rock and not just ice. Hisuian Avalog is said to have been one of only a select group of Pokemon that were blessed with cosmic power by Arceus in the times of the Hisui region, and served as the noble Pokemon of the Alabasta Icelands in that time. While Hisuian Avalog are notably smaller and lighter than Colossian Avalog, it is believed that thousands of years ago they were much larger, perhaps even the size of some Dynamaxed Pokemon, with their current state likely being the result of climate change in recent millennia. Regardless of this, these creatures are surprisingly gentle and calm and easy to approach, and thus can be interacted with safely in most cases. But that does not mean that they should ever be underestimated. With bodies made of stone capped by ice on top, these glacial beasts are known best for the massive plow-like structures that are attached to the front of their frame, as these icy structures allow these beasts to not only plow through deep snow on mountain paths, but are also strong enough for them to use their lower jaws to shatter boulders with ease, putting modern steel to shame and in turn giving them both access to Strong Jaw as a possible base ability, and also serving as the basis for the signature Mountain Gale attack, a powerful physical weapon that can readily stun opponents that aren't fast enough to strike first. In terms of the overall combat attributes, these beasts are Ice Rock types, as noted have access to Strong Jaw as a base ability instead of Own Tempo, possess slightly decreased base special attack and special defense stats, and slightly increased base attack and speed stats, and have access to the Rock Slide, Earth Power, and Mountain Gale attacks, the first of which they gain access to immediately after evolving. As a whole then, these variants might not seem all that threatening to some, but their sheer physical might renders them terrifying contenders to deal with, and certainly not beasts to underestimate in any way, even with severe weaknesses to fighting and steel-type assaults, among others.
Lastly, we will end this update video by taking a look at Hasuyan Decidueye.
These creatures share the same general body type as their lowland counterparts, but the wings are noticeably shorter with a darker, more earthy brown coloration to them, along with black feet and white claws, and a brilliant red plumage that covers their chest, back, and head, with a V-shaped orange crest in the center of the chest near their neck, as well as a wide-brimmed hat-like structure of feathers on the top of their head, crowned with an orange and white top knot of feathers. Additionally, their eyes have turned a vibrant shade of red, and they have a more developed muscular body frame to them, with an upturned red collar of feathers around their neck, and a cape-like extension of red feathers that runs down the back of their lower torso. For reasons that are not entirely certain, the colder environment of the ancient Hisui region, compared to their native region of Alola, once allowed Decidueye to take on a unique form after evolution, and the resulting change not only altered the physical form, but also their behavior and the power that is at their disposal. Unlike Alolan Decidueye, these birds are known to prefer close-quarters attacks and tactics to overwhelm opponents over long-range assaults, their stalwart, fierce personalities allowing them to strike fiercely in a fight with few thoughts towards repercussions and without losing their cool. While this can make them somewhat difficult to approach and care for, they are able to tolerate those that are not disrespectful or hostile towards them, so there is some potential for growth in their bonds with others. They tend to live a fairly nomadic lifestyle, wandering across the Hisui region in search of food, and they rarely have to worry about anything other than fellow birds in a fight, as they can not only strike with powerful kicks that can easily down trees and destroy boulders, but also use these strikes as an opening from which they can then fire the hidden arrow quills to strike multiple times in a row. This is perfectly exemplified in the signature triple arrows attack, a move that both sets them up to deal greater damage in the future and weakens the defensive resolve of their target. Given that air pockets are stored inside the rachises of their feathers that helps to insulate them against the cold, and thus enables them to survive in the Hisui region with little trouble, this all adds up to make these formidable birds to handle in close-quarters conflicts. As far as their combat attributes go, these birds are noted for being grass fighting types, possess slightly decreased base special attack, special defense, and speed stats, and slightly increased base HP attack and defense stats compared to their lowland counterpart, and have access to the Gust, Rock Smash, Aerial Ace, Magical Leaf, Air Slash, Aura Sphere, and Triple Arrow attacks, with the Rock Smash attack in particular being accessible immediately after evolution, rendering these powerful birds a notable threat in any close-quarters brawl.
And that should do it for the update. Look forward to more information coming your way in the future here on the V.T.P. Thank you for watching this video. It brings me great joy to be able to speak to you all in the world each and every time we meet like this, to explore the many different facets of both the world of Pokemon as we know it, and the world as we live it, through every adventure we have with Pokemon by our side. If you'd like to, please subscribe, ring the bell, and all that jazz to keep yourself updated on content uploads and other materials of the like. You can also follow me on Twitter if you'd like to know right away when something new is uploaded, and my written works, from which most of this is based on, can be found on DeviantArt. Links to both can be found in the description down below. Remember that the world of Pokemon is a place full of wonder and mystery, and you never know what to expect. So, stay vigilant, keep watch, and always be prepared for the unexpected. Until next time, trainers and friends of all sorts, have a wonderful time.